Hi, this is Marina from Darkstar Astrology, bringing you the Mercury Retrograde that starts on July the 26th and it ends on August the 19th. So yeah, we've got a Mars retrograde and now we've got Mercury as well. So what's interesting about this, if you look at the chart, is of course Mars is retrograde in Aquarius at the moment, and Mercury is going to be retrograde in Leo. So they are kind of, with the eclipses happening there as well, there is a lot of action on the Aquarius and Leo axes. So this is in turn also going to affect the other fixed signs of Scorpio and also Taurus, who have got their own things going on as well, because we've got Jupiter at 13 degrees Scorpio as well, and Uranus has just entered Taurus as well. So the fixed signs are really getting crucified actually at the moment. So, you know, what's Mercury going to do? What's the trickster going to do on top of all of that as well? Not only that, this Mercury retrograde happens the day before an eclipse at 4 degrees Aquarius as well. So it's really decision time, I think. It feels to me like a lot of stuff is kind of coming to a head at this eclipse with it just seems to be this kind of old flames theme, looking back, nostalgia, history, but also is history about to repeat itself, you know? And making decisions based on the past is sometimes a good thing, sometimes not a good thing. Are you making decisions based on, you know, the fact that something that happened in your childhood, and being fixed in those behavior patterns as well? And or is it a case that, you know, a leopard really just cannot change its spots, and better to kind of finish it before it gets to the point where you're kind of being pulled into a kind of underworld situation as well? All these things to consider, and this is Mercury retrograde, which is all about thinking things over, rethinking things. Now, this is an important retrograde as well because it will go over the August the 11th eclipse point of Dubi at 18 Leo. So all the issues brought up with that eclipse, the message from that will, you know, it's like really getting the message. And then part of that is the learning triangle that I talked about in the solar eclipse in August, which is going to trigger that fairytale Jupiter trine Neptune. So, oh my God, it just seems like there's two sides to this, and one side is the sort of fairy tale, hyper real, is it real side of it, and then there's the Mercury tricking you into thinking it's this kind of wonderful, blissful thing when it may just be all lies. Also, of course, you know, because I have been talking about addiction problems, and I have been talking about alcohol and how drugs can put you in a sort of altered state where everything's euphoric and you think everything's wonderful, but then as soon as the drugs run out and there's the hangover, you wake up in the morning and you're next to this unrecognizable demon that you really didn't think you were going to bed with. So there's a lot of that, and Mars retrograde as well. And they say, you know, don't start a sexual relationship when Mars is in retrograde too. So there's all these things. It's not a very good time to be making life-changing decisions and starting major affairs and doing rash things like, say, meeting someone who you think is the love of your life, and yet both of you are married with kids or something, and you do something like crazy, like elope together. That's the kind of energy that's going on with these eclipses. It's what's going on with the Mars retrograde, and it's going on with the Mercury retrograde as well. So this is a warning. Try and keep your feet on the ground. Now, there is a point of Mercury retrograde when the Sun and Mercury are exactly conjunct. And during that time, you could have a sort of window of clarity where you can sort of stand in the eye of the storm, see all the chaos around you and go, okay, I think I know what's going on here. So I'll give you that date. So it's going to be on August the 8th at 10:02 p.m. in New York. So wherever you are in the world, just work out the time difference from that. But that's basically, that's when it's exact. And you've got a window of 17 minutes each side of that for what's known as Kazemi, which is when the Mercury is sitting in the throne of the king. Mercury is kind of like the king's jester, and when he's sitting in the throne of the king, then he has this kind of awakening as well, and maybe he's less tricky as well. So let's see. Okay, so the window opens at 6:11 p.m. And you've got until 10. So that's a good few hours, and then it's probably the same after 10 as well. So yeah, I would say, to be safe, so that you've got it right on the throne, 3 hours before 10 and 3 hours after 10 p.m. on August the 8th. And there, if you've been just so confused, you don't know what's going on, we've got all these learning triangles going on at that time as well, and that's when the Sun and Mercury all are in this amazing learning triangle, and that's on August the 8th. And Mercury and the Sun will be square Jupiter, then Jupiter will be trine Neptune, and then Neptune will be quincunx the Sun and Mercury as well. And on the other side, you've got Venus trine Mars, Mars square Uranus, and then Uranus quincunx Venus. So it's very much adjustment in relationships. Oh my God, there's another learning triangle, and that one is Saturn trine Uranus back to Venus. So a lot of lessons to be learnt, and of course Mercury is all about learning lessons as well. So then Mercury goes direct again on August the 19th, and that will be around 11 of Leo. So let's have a look at Mercury in these decans and see what the flavour of this Mercury retrograde is going to be like. It looks pretty tense, has to be said. I mean, gosh, that T-square is like a volcano, really. So yes, from the beginning of the retrograde, July the 26th, Mercury's going to be in Decan 3. So Mercury in Decan 3, it's not on any particular stars. They are further back. I mean, Regulus is in this decan, but Mercury goes nowhere near it. So I didn't think it was any point in looking at Mercury on Regulus. But what I found in my research, this is what I wrote for Leo Decan 3, that it carries with it a great authority, so that the people with this often have a say in who gets to eat the forbidden fruit of elite knowledge. Well, that's interesting. That's kind of like the media being the gatekeepers for what we can and cannot know. So Decan 3, Leo, they're the guardians of the truth, but with this they carry great responsibility. The proles will listen to Leo Decan 2 without question, so they need to make sure they're giving out high quality, well-researched information. The great courage of Leo Decan 3 means that these folk might see themselves as keyboard warriors. Now, Austin Kopok has also written about a book about the decans, and he calls this decan the banner, which is kind of interesting because the banner is very much a symbol. It's very mercurial, and banners have great potency. They're like brands, really. And he says that while this face may abound with images of noble heroes defending the right, just as many tyrants grace its halls, unwilling to yield their thrones no matter the human cost. Now, also, I've said that journalists and writers with this position will often have a very sharp tongue, and there can be spiteful words of vengeance too. There's a tendency to be brought down by gossip. So, Mercury retrograde again. Otherwise, this is a Mercury retrograde, I think, where people are employed to write clickbait articles that ruin a person's reputation. A biting wit is seen here in some of the natives, since Mars is the ruler of this decan. Of course, we've got Mars very active in this retrograde as well, active in a sort of underhand way, really. So we've got a lot of underhand stuff going on. So with Mars, the ruler of this decan, we could see a war of words too. This is definitely the most aggressive of the Leo decans, so it's not surprising to see words doing a great deal of damage when Mercury is in this decan, of course, you know. So at the same time, this is a decan of occulted elite knowledge too, which may come out in the pens of writers and artists with Mercury in this decan. So here's some example of people who embody Mercury in Leo 3 energy. Now we've got Ivan the Terrible, Hayley Selassie, Ernest Hemingway, Goethe, Emily Bronte, and Tim Burton. So those are the writers. Robin Williams, comedian, and he's quite a good example, I think, of this energy as well, because he was quite, sad. He had a battle with, I think it was alcoholism, wasn't it? Peter Sellers as well, very melancholic, comedian but melancholic. Lisa Kudrow from Friends, and also Michael Jackson, Charlie Sheen as well, another one with addiction problems too. So, and some other writers, Charlie Parker, and some musicians as well, Florence from Florence and the Machine too. So, you can see some, not everyone's going to embody that energy, but I do think maybe Robin Williams out of that lot, and Emily Bronte and Tim Burton, I think certainly seems to have this kind of occult knowledge, because I think if you look at Tim Burton's films, they all contain something, and you have to figure it out really. But they do speak about the truth, I think. So Mercury is in that decan of Leo until August the 4th. And so the beginning of the retrograde is also when Mars is pretty much quite still in that strong square with Uranus. In fact, I think through the whole retrograde it's like that. But I think it's going to be, because this decan of Mercury is ruled by Mars, I think the Mars side of it's going to come out a lot more strongly in the beginning of the retrograde. So then afterwards it moves into Leo decan 2, and that will be from August the 4th until the end of the retrograde. Now Mercury in this decan, I think it's more protective. It's less of the sort of cunning trickster journalist. It's got more of a protective thing. So, and this is when it will also be conjunct Doobie, which is in Ursa Major. And Mercury on Doobie is to seek understanding of nature, or to be interested in collecting knowledge of a people's culture or history, a lover of the fabric of life or culture. And that's a quote from Bernadette Brady. Now, from now onwards, what else have we got going on? Yeah, remember we are moving towards the all-important Kadzimi moment of Mercury in the throne of the king. Oh, and just to give you an example of someone who has that Mercury conjunct the sun is Bill Hicks, comedian, another one. So, it is the position of the comedian, but someone who is trying to spread truth in a way that's very, very hard-hitting through comedy, and which is very much, the Joker with the King. I'm thinking of George Carlin here as well, although I don't know, he doesn't have this position, but he's a very good example of that sort of wise trickster energy. So Mercury in Leo decan 2, I wrote, this is a position of positive thinking and motivation. Jupiter being the double ruler of this decan, like Mars was the double ruler of the other one, that this ensures Mercury will want to spread its wings far and wide. The thirst for knowledge is great, and these folk want to understand all cultures and religions of the world, so as to synthesize their own wisdom from their findings. So in the general section, I stated that, Mercury, Leo Decantu rather, doesn't really like to bow down to any one guru, and they tend to cherry pick from many different spiritual practices. Now, this is the Mercury that loves to, it's the kind of person that would collect fridge magnets for every country they've visited. They love little knickknacks and souvenirs. Now, a good example of Mercury here is Amelia Earhart, the woman flyer, who basically went further and higher than any other woman in her day. And then Usain Bolt, who is basically wings on legs. So it's quite a fast-paced Mercury now. Much more agile, I would say, and not so sharp and knife-like as when it's in Leo 3. So when Mercury Leo 2 communicates, they do so with such drama and flair that they're often in demand as public speakers. So during this time, you could get people making very charismatic and important speeches in the media as well. Comedy can be their forte, people with this position, and they also make excellent physical performers too, like I said. Then when the spotlight shines on them, they usually do inspire others into pioneering action and to travel further than they usually do. So, this is pushing people to challenge themselves intellectually as well, and to think outside the box also. Austin Kopok warns, however, that their thinking can often be quite egocentric and blind spots are therefore common. Their minds improve, though, as their self-knowledge increases. So during this retrograde, really, we are given the opportunity to reflect and look into ourselves and find these blind spots as well, I think. So I think, but generally, if we're looking at how this is working with other people in relationships, the self-confidence of this decan is very motivating to those who have very low self-esteem, but they must try to hold back from being totally dominating. Now, again, you can see from the people who have this position, they can be activists. We've got Marine Le Pen, we've got Nelson Mandela, Fidel Castro, these are extreme people, Matahari. And then in the actors world, Kevin Spacey, he's been quite controversial lately. And then Sean Penn, who else stands out here? Mick Jagger, oh God, yes, Mercury in Leo, totally. Pete Burns, I don't know if Americans might know who he is. He was I don't know what to call him now, but he was one of the first sort of trans people in the 80s. A lot of plastic surgery, though, and he's got these massive, crazy lips as well. That's Mercury for you. And Susan Vega, Shania Twain, and Keith Moon. And, as I said before, Usain Bolt, fast people, agile people, and some good writers as well. Zelda Fitzgerald, Dorothy Parker, T.A. Lawrence as well. So, you can see it there. And because, Leo has a sense of drama, so storytelling with Mercury is always going to be very dramatic and melodramatic as well. So in summary, I think up until the 3rd of August is going to probably be the hottest spot of the Mercury retrograde. And then after that, you start to kind of learn things and step back a bit and be a bit more thoughtful. Although I know it speeds up a little bit as well, but when I say it speeds up, it becomes more kind of flexible and agile, and you're able to sort of juggle things a little bit more. But in the beginning, you've still got that T-square with the Sun, North Node, and Uranus. So that's a bit of a testing point. So that's at the end of July. That's the 26th. And then, let's see when that stops. You see, August the 8th, all the tension kind of gets dissipated and turns into the learning triangles. So there's no more T-square, and the Mars square Uranus becomes this learning triangle with Venus, who comes in to do quite a lot of good work in Libra. So she's well strong there, and she'll help be the peacemaker. So I think after August the 8th, things are better, especially after the moment of Kadzimi. That will be a bit of an awakening for a lot of people, and people will feel a bit more. You see, with the influence of Dubi, the mother bear, there is that kind of protective side, and like it's kind of like if somebody's been making mistakes and somebody's been, acting stupidly, the awakening is like, well, think of the kids. It's that kind of thing, So if a parent has been acting childish and stupid during this Mercury retrograde, it's the kids that will kind of sober them up, maybe literally as well. And it'll be around sort of August the 8th. See if there's a big awakening there. And then it's just before, of course, it's before the eclipse on the 11th as well. So that's those few days, the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, they're a bit of an awakening moment there. So yeah, then it's direct on it starts stationing on August the 19th, so the 20th. And then on August the 28th is where Mars goes direct as well. So I think, God, this summer is just so crazy, really. I mean, you could have all sorts of holiday romances starting up and then ending just as quickly, or old flames coming back into your life. There's a lot of new things, but then also I think they sort of flash in the pans as well because of the Uranus square Mars. And Uranus, it starts things out of the blue, but then it ends things out of the blue as well. And then you've got these retrogrades making people think twice about things as well. And then maybe just, going back to, I don't know, like somebody leaving their wife and then having a fling, but then going back to the wife. It's all very roller coaster. Now, in terms of the media as well, of course, Mercury rules the media, and the media is our modern day. To me, I just think the media is the modern day church, and the sermons that we get from the media are just incredible these days. So in the first, like I said, Leo Decan 3, the first half, be prepared for some huge lies as well. I mean, when do they ever tell the truth? But there'll be some big ones. I mean, it could be like something that looks a lot worse than it really is as well. I wonder about maybe fires as well, because Mars is so hot here with Uranus, just explosions, fireworks. I don't know. It seems to have gone, and thank God for that, touch wood, it seems to have gone quiet on the old terrorist front, and maybe they felt, that we've had enough of that now. And now they're going to be doing it in a different way, the media. But it's interesting. But the second half of it, I think it's a great Mercury retrograde for learning lessons. There's so many learning triangles. There's a great chance of awakening as well. And I think, it's not going to be boring, is it? This summer is certainly not going to be boring. It's an exciting one. And the thing is trying to keep your feet on the ground. That might be quite hard. But otherwise, I think the second half of the retrograde is not too bad. And anybody who's got personal planets in the way of this, anyone who's been triggered by the eclipse, you're going to have a really exciting time. That's all I can say. All right, then. That's the end of this Mercury report. And I just also want to say the way that I work with these decans, I mean, just in case you don't know what a decan is each sign is divided into 3. You've got 30 degrees in a sign, and each decan is a 10-degree slice of that sign. So it gives a bit more of a detailed look at how a planet works within a sign. It's not the same all the way through the sign. It's slightly different, and also there's different stars there as well. I think it's a good way to get people to be interested in the fixed stars. Once they look at what's fixed stars are in their decan, then they can get into it a little bit more deeply. And so I think what I will do, and I've been meaning to do this because a lot of people say to me, what are these decans? Is I should do a YouTube explaining all about them, and then what I'm actually doing with the book as well. But maybe that's a bit off topic for Mercury retrograde. But Mercury is about learning more and finding out that astrology isn't just as simple as sun in one sign. There are so many other factors to consider. And, you know, when you think there are 36 decans, it's not just 12 signs, it's 36 decans. There's a lot more richness in there if you are interested. Anyway, if you are, come to Darkstar Astrology and you'll see there are all the decans there. Most of them are nearly finished now. So have a happy Mercury retrograde with those learning triangles and learning more about the amazing natural law of astrology. All the best then. Bye-bye.